Loses her entire fortune in stock trading. Her husband scolds her constantly. Son also blames her for losing the house. In the face of her family's accusations, the wife kept saying she was sorry. Since then, they became a family that didn't talk, and her greatest wish is for her family to say a word to her. But all she got in return was a cold attitude. When her son came home from school, she rushes to greet him with a smile, but he treats her like she's nothing. She feels like a sinner in her family. Even her youngest son, who was once her closest friend, threw his school bag away. He doesn't even look at her and leaves. And when her husband and children are not home, she would eat rice in boiling water. Only when the children were out of school and her husband was off work, she would only cook a nice meal. How she wanted to ease the relationship at home. But even if she added a little food to her son's plate, he would put it down with disgust. This made her feel even worse when she was already blaming herself. She even thought about dying, until the day Roy and Lisa arrived, would change their family, and Roy told them what he wanted to do. He hoped that an old man with only a few days left to live, to end his life in their home. Roy was a volunteer at a hospital, and started an organization called the Light Brigade. It's a group that helps people who are dying to have their wishes fulfilled. He found out that the old man wanted to return to the place where he and his partner used to live before he died, and this is the place where the old man used to live. After hearing Roy's story, the husband was reluctant. Whether it was money, or offering to help them find a fancy hotel, the husband still wouldn't budge. At this point, the wife asked the old man how many days he had left to live. Roy said 3 days at the most. Back in the room, the wife said to her husband, who was staring out of the window, "I didn't realize this house meant so much to some people, but why do we hate it here?" The husband was also deep in thought. Early that morning, Roy was at their front door cleaning. Lisa cleaned the car for them. This was a way to impress the man of the house. Roy even prepared a nice lunch for the lady of the house. That's how he impressed the couple. Roy also found temporary accommodation for the family of 4. Wife was afraid that her children and husband would not like it here, so she suggested that she could use the money they gave her for the trip. But the husband's face was indifferent. The son's face was impatient. How hard the wife tried to make things right, but to no avail. In the evening at dinner time, the wife asked her eldest son to come over for dinner. She said she could make it again if she didn't like it, but the son looks impatient. The husband suddenly stood up for his wife.
너 엄마한테 그게 지금 무슨 말버릇이야? 아니 어떻게든 가족관계 풀어보려고 애쓰는 거 보면 마지막으로 한 번은 동참하는 신중이라도 해야 할 거 아니야? 아니면 다 찢어져 살든가!
In the face of his father's anger, the boy takes his clothes and walks out, looking at her son who had left. This made her feel even more remorseful. The next day, Roy brought the old man to the house. Looking out the window at the persimmon trees, the old man said that he and his wife used to sit under the tree and look at the persimmons, but now they were bare. And Tom heard these words. So at night, after everyone was asleep, he folded white paper into the shape of a persimmon and painted them with yellow paint and hung them up one by one. The next day, the old man lay again in the sun under the window. He saw that the dry tree was full of persimmons. The old man smiled happily, and the withered persimmon tree came to life. Tom had been working all night. His hands and face were covered in paintbrush colors. He didn't have time to wash up and fell asleep. At lunchtime, they made a nice lunch, just as the old man had wanted. The old man smiled and thanked Tom for the persimmons last night, and Tom, who hadn't smiled in a long time, tried to keep it up. The look on his face made everyone in the room smile. At that moment, Roy saw a man at the door. He opened the door and found that it was the oldest son of the owner of the house, so he invited him to join him for dinner, and they seemed to be waiting for someone else. Suddenly the door of the house was opened. Everyone welcomed them home. It turned out to be the old man's daughter who had arrived. The daughter rushed to shake her father's hand. She complained why he hadn't told her he was seriously ill. The old man said that you were married abroad, so he didn't want you to go through all the trouble. At this moment, the daughter blamed herself for being married far away. The little granddaughter came and wanted to sing a song for her grandfather. The girl's voice, it was as if she had entered their hearts. Some of them smiled warmly, looking at the little grandchild who was so lively and lovely. The old man could see his own daughter's face in her. After the performance, they also started to eat their lunch. The boy also felt the warmth of home at this moment. At the end of the evening, he called his mother out. She played with him outside. He finally smiled at his mother for the first time in a long time. The boy said sorry to his mother, but the mother never resented her son for a single moment. Maybe that's the love of a mother. No matter how much her son hurt her, a mother's love is always there for her child. At the same time, the old man's children choose to live in the same room with him. Seeing his daughter happy and contented, he was relieved too. At that moment, the old man stepped out of bed. The moment he pushed open the door, he felt like he was 60 years old again. He looked at the persimmon tree he had planted with his wife. He climbed up it. At that moment, he was 30 years old again. He handed the persimmons to his wife who had come looking for him. Then they left this world hand in hand.
너무 고생 많으셨어요.